Alright, so first up is Team ILM from North Mill Springs School in Irving, Texas. So please help me welcome Team ILM to the stage.
Good afternoon, honorable judges and esteemed guests. My name is Mariam Khan.
My name is Hiba Theo.
My name is Bilal Hassan.
My name is Shafan Asif.
And my name is Bilal Mouad.
And we are Team ILM.
Raise your hand if you've ever felt stressed or know someone who has. But no, wait, hold on. Look around you. Well, it's clear that stress is an epidemic that affects all people from all walks of life. Take, for example, our friend George.
This is George. George works long hours to support his family at home. However, he stresses a lot, and sometimes he doesn't even realize it. When George starts driving home, he stresses even more, and he worries about what he has to work on when he goes back home. Now, the problem is that he has to go to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist prescribes him with several stress medications because he's diagnosed with acute stress. Now, when George goes back to work, he's still stressed out, and the only way he can really relieve his stress, the only way he can solve it, is by keep on popping those pills.
George's story isn't unique, and there are statistics to back this. A Regas Group study found that 6 in 10 workers experience increased amounts of workplace stress. That means that in the United States alone, 120 million workers experience extreme amounts of stress, and that is not including new mothers, students, and other groups. Consequently, 225 million working days are lost per year, resulting in $80 billion lost in productivity. But it doesn't stop there, and Hiba will now share with you how stress impacts your body.
Now, most people, like George, settle for dealing with the symptoms of stress with stress medication, rather than taking proactive measures to combat stress. The long-term effects of stress are highly damaging. Cortisol is the primary hormone which is released to activate anti-stress pathways in times of stress. But chronic stress can lead to elevated amounts of cortisol, which can lead to interferences with learning and memory, decreased immunity, osteoporosis, weight gain, heart disease, and the list goes on.
But George's problem isn't his therapist's fault. 76% of all therapists cite a lack of confidence in their ability to counsel their patients about stress, while 50% lack any referral sources. We contacted various experts, and here's what they had to say.
Stress is a very important part of the disease process that we deal with.
Stress impacts my students in a variety of ways. I think at the end of the day, whether it be coming home from a job, coming home from school, you feel all that stress, but you don't always know where it's coming from.
Especially, in our society, Americans, we are used to a fairly high amount of stress on a daily basis. So I don't think we realize when it gets too much, we don't realize it.
So it's clear that there is a problem within our system.
As my colleagues have explained, stress is an epidemic that affects people from all walks of life. But unfortunately, there's not been an effective solution. That is, until today, introducing De-Stress. De-Stress is an innovative new product that we developed at Team ILM, which comprises of 2 subsystems, a wristband and an app. And what exactly is de-stress? Well, the wristband activates when human pulse and human temperature are detected. And then the user puts on the wristband, and the wristband will track cortisol levels through this way. And how exactly does this work? Well, the band sends a small current through the user's sweat, a very minute current, but what this does is because cortisol has a specific conductance value, we are able to analyze the change in current, and thus cortisol levels are able to be determined. And from there, we are able to send the data from the wristband to the app where the data is processed. And now Hiba will talk a little more about how that data is processed.
The app creates a stress profile using the cortisol level input from the band and the other major user parameters that affect cortisol production: age, gender, ethnicity, lifestyle, and usual work schedule. The stress profile is displayed in real time and will allow the user to view the history of their stress by displaying activities on a stress level versus time graph.
As the user uses this innovation through weeks, months, and years, it'll be able to compile a personalized stress database that correlates the activities with stress levels. And this allows us to do something very interesting and very unique. Whenever the cortisol levels are detected to be very high or very low, abnormal, we're able to give smart recommendations. Now, what exactly does smart recommendation mean? Well, the smart recommendations are based off of various different data inputs, such as the stress database that we mentioned previously, personal interest, which we ask the user to input, and then metadata. And what does this include? Time of day, weather, schedule. Because we want to make sure that when we give a smart recommendation, not only is it the most effective activity that the user can take to de-stress, but it's also the most convenient.
So now let's see how George's life changed for the better after de-stress. Here's George. So George has a big assignment from his boss. As he's working, his cortisol levels go high, as in his stress goes high, and the de-stress band detects this cortisol level in his sweat and sends a notification to the app. The app notifies him
The app notifies them essentially that the cortisol levels are too high, and would you like to take an activity or some kind of activity? And the way this works is that it'll go through this, pulls data from the database and the metadata. So it's checking the weather at that time, the temp, or what time of day, what's his schedule like. And based off of his work schedule, it knows that he can't go outside to take a long walk right now.
So it suggests something that's easy, that's relaxing to do, such as listening to a song. And as George listens to the song, his stress levels go down, and this notification comes up that tells him that he can start working again. So George, since you're here, would you like to share with us how de-stress is better from all the other methods you've used in the past?
Sure, why not? The de-stress band has really changed my life because now I have a way to get real-time cortisol measurement, personal stress profiling, and stress management, something that I've never seen in any other product. Before, I used to just use clinical testing, such as saliva cortisol testing and blood testing. Saliva cortisol testing is done by spitting on a slip of paper and getting it tested for a couple of days, which is really inconvenient. Blood testing is done by getting pricked, which is invasive and sometimes hurts, which is also very inconvenient. Also, the de-stress band is more accurate than the Hepatica wristband because the de-stress wristband measures cortisol, which has a direct correlation with stress, while the Hepatica wristband just measures sweat. Overall, the de-stress wristband is the best way to manage my stress, hands down.
So let's talk money. It's clear that there's a demand for our product in the world right now. The WHO reported that over 500 million people globally suffer from acute stress. If we were to take 10% of this number and sell them our $100 product, we would have a market value of $6 billion. And taking into account the cost of production of $40, we would still be making over $3 billion in profit.
We would use these investments to conduct clinical investigations, file a prototype, and other things like that. However, for that to happen, we need the support of the phenomenal experts sitting in this room. Imagine a world with less stress, less worries. A world where workers are more productive. A world where students are able to learn better and gain more knowledge. A world where people don't have to suffer from these diseases, where stress plays a hidden factor. And most importantly, a world full of happiness because we are all de-stressed.